there's been a lot of hype around Apple and AI and where are they going with it, and a lot of anticipation and hype for what was coming this week at their big event. And they went through and they announced what some of the changes are and what's coming for it. And so AI is a big deal. Apple Intelligence, as it's being called, is coming to iPhones everywhere in the new release. It's not coming to every device. So if you're not somebody who has the latest, but it is coming to all the devices with M1 processors and above, and it'll be on OS 18 with, and again, not every Apple iPhone. So who knows? Maybe there's a way to boost their iPhone sales too, because I know I saw it and was like, well, you know what? I'm several models behind, so maybe this will push me to get the new one. But so they're enhancing it. But what was interesting as I broke down and actually listened to and watched all the different functionality, I think there was a lot of hype and people going, this is it. This is the AI assistant, the full blown, fully functioning, autonomous AI bot on in your hand, available for you at any point in time. And if that's what you were expecting, let me just say, I think you will be very disappointed. I kind of watched as they went through it, and just based on some of the hype, and at the end as I'm watching, I kind of sat in my storm. If you're watching the video, you can see my AR effects. It was kind of like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing. Which, to be fair, in some ways, it is a pretty sizable, and I'll break down why it's actually a pretty significant advancement. But it also doesn't come as a surprise for me coming from Apple. So Apple oftentimes tends to be a little more conservative with some of the stuff that they do. They're not necessarily going to put themselves way out there, especially with something as volatile as AI. So it doesn't surprise me that Apple wouldn't want to go full blown in on an AI assistant, especially given some of the debacles we've seen with, Google adding Reddit and search engines and some of these things where AI is creating fake articles and all this other stuff that's happening left and right. And so it's not surprising that Apple went, we're not going to necessarily go full in on this thing. I think the other thing that many people who aren't closer to the tech may overlook is the fact it's doing some of this AI processing on device is actually really impressive. So, and there's no shortage of challenges to taking. People just don't always recognize how much horsepower it takes to run some of this generative AI stuff. And to be able to do it on device is impressive. Like when you're using a usual interface and you're doing this, you're actually bouncing off their processing centers and their servers and all this other stuff. And you're just kind of interacting through your browser. It's not actually wreaking havoc on your processor, on your computer. So to actually bring some of that in-house, to me, this is laying the groundwork for what's to come. So if you don't have your mind blown by what it can do, I was right there with you, but I think there's more than meets the eye. And I think this is Apple taking some conservative, cautious, and in some ways, I think this is good. We've all been saying, hey, can we slow down on the AI advancement? I think that's exactly what Apple's doing, going, we're not going to just go headfirst into this and risk completely blowing this thing up and damaging our brand, our reputation. We're going to step in slowly, introduce it in ways that I think people will be able to adopt in tangible, meaningful ways. And then we'll slowly layer this on as we figure out more of the processing on device challenges that we have, because integrating hardware and software is no simple step. And then, as we move up the adoption curve and more of the masses are there. I mean, you really got to take into account Apple has a massive, massive footprint in terms of who uses Apple devices. And so for them to just take a wild risk on something, I actually, as I processed it more, I respect where they landed on it. So while at first I was disappointed and going, really? I was hoping to be able to do more with my iPhone after this release than what you launched. But I get it and I actually respect it. And I think there's actually some real wisdom behind this. Now you may be sitting there going, so get on with it. What can we start to expect? Couple things that I'll just hit on. I'm not going to get into all of the details. You can go watch a video specifically breaking down all the features and functionalities. And actually some of the stuff, a lot of the experts who are even closer to it are like, until we actually see it released, I'm not getting too excited even about what they're announcing, because how it looks on a slide or how it looks in a presentation or in a perfectly conditioned environment is very different than in practice. So some of the ones that were interesting, as you can imagine, we're going to see more summaries and AI prioritization. So you're going to see more AI prioritizing your notifications. There was a kind of a cool feature on email where it could summarize your email real quick and just tell you at a glance what each email has, all being done with its little AI assistant, Apple Intelligence. There's a little logo that you can tell when it's an AI intelligence decision or an Apple Intelligence decision. So basic functionality like that. There were some things where it could do, rewrite this email, stuff like that. That, again, not mind blowing, not something you couldn't do somewhere else, but it's just embedded directly on the device and it's running off the device's processing power. So instead of bouncing out to another site and having to wait on that, which some people might go, well, that doesn't help me. I have ChatGPT on my phone. Why would I just copy and paste? It simplifies a step. Is your mind blown? Not necessarily. I thought the Apple actions were somewhat interesting where, you have a little more opportunity to voice command your phone to do more than you may, set an alarm at this time, and it can connect some basic dots between a couple apps. It was not, if you listen to my last one or a couple ones ago, I was like, will Apple's AI have the ability to fully know and interact with all of our apps? And can we just tell it to do whatever on anything on our phone and do that? No, it won't. Apple Intents, like Intents, that's being open to devs. One of the challenges that I think Apple has on even that capability that I'm talking about of, could you ask your phone to do this and it works across apps? One of the things that you have a challenge in that is the devs actually own their apps. And so they actually have to be the ones to open their app up to that and actually design for that. So they did create the foundational framework through Apple Intents that now app designers can start to build their apps optimized for AI utilization, for Apple Intelligence. But this is a slow moving process. So, as I understood the features, the functionality, Apple Actions is specific to Apple apps, things like that it can do automatically. Apple Intents is designed to be able to, allow developers to start optimizing their apps for this. So as new Apple developers or Apple app developers start getting on this train, I think we're going to start to see more of that, more of the cross app collaboration. Apple Actions was really pretty basic, one, two steps, not advanced. You can ask it to do a whole bunch of things and it'll just take care of it for you, which, the way it was being hyped, it definitely didn't meet my expect. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, a little bit better than Siri. Siri's enhanced based on a pretty comprehensive database of everything you can do on your iPhone. So if you need any assistance on, like, how would I do this with my iPhone, it can do that. But that's a pretty basic, it's trained on a very specific set of information and it's voice assistant type of a thing. So not radically different, but again, basic changes to that. So that was fine. Siri is slightly enhanced, through voice actions to be able to tap into Apple Actions, into some of these, like asking it how to do certain things on your phone. And it can create a quick, like, job aid basically for you, hey, I'm trying to do this. How would I do it? And it'll give you the instructions and walk you through it. So that was okay, fine. One of the things that I thought was pretty interesting, given the on device capability, they actually had integrated, nothing mind blowing for anybody who's done image generation with some of these Gen AI models, but they actually have some on device image generation capability, primarily in Genmoji, where you can have it create your own emojis. So if you want an emoji that obviously isn't in the library, you can just have it generate its own. There were some pretty cute, funny, ways people were using that. You can have it take, basically your avatar that you use as your image and have it created in different environments in text engines. And, again, it can create little cute, funny images to go along to personalize. And I think this is where we're starting to see Apple getting into the basics of, hey, how can we use generative AI, advanced AI in basic ways where people are already doing these things, but maybe they're getting stuck or frustrated. You can't quite find the right image you want to send in your text chat group, or the emoji you really want to send doesn't exist. Well, let's use AI so people can start getting creative with that. I thought another one that was a little bit interesting was, it does some of that automated video creation where, it'll do your memories. Now you can actually direct it like, hey, make a video of these things, and it can go through all your videos and all your images and put together a video. Now, how good it works, we'll see in practice. But the fact that's all being done on demand on your device, it's pretty impressive. And the fact that even with videos, it's now transcribing and actually breaking down, it's actually analyzing even the images in your video. So if you want to find a specific moment in something if you're like my wife, you've got thousands and thousands of pictures and videos and you're trying to find it, you can just describe it in natural language and it will find it. In which I thought the search capability was already pretty good, but it stepped it up. So all that to say, you can go see a checklist of every single enhancement. I think the on-device image gen capability is pretty impressive. To be able to, the fact we've moved to that point on device with just a basic mobile processor is pretty impressive. I think the Apple intents and Apple actions over time, we'll start to see them to be pretty powerful. The one thing that I think a lot of people were waiting for, because ChatGPT and Open AI had inked this deal, I think there was a lot more expectation on what Siri would be able to do, and the capability to essentially basically have this AI assistant on demand at all times that's as comprehensive as ChatGPT. It doesn't work quite that way. They showed it, and essentially, if you're trying to do something more advanced than what the really basic on device model, it'll say, "Do you want to connect to ChatGPT?" And whether that just opens the app, whether it's directly connecting to it, I haven't seen the interface yet, but was not Siri on steroids. Or Siri in the Marvel series suddenly becomes a superhero, get bit by a radioactive spider, anything like that. So, needless to say, I wasn't blown away. And actually, now that I think about that, please don't. If you're a Marvel or DC person, if I said that wrong, don't send me an email. I know I have some Marvel fans. Anyway, don't expect to have your mind blown. But I think what it is doing is laying the foundation in a conservative, practical way that we'll start to see, especially with things like Apple Intents, where people will start to be able to build apps. We'll start to see more of this advanced capability. It will start to pull some of the load off these massive data centers and put it directly on the device. I don't know how that's going to affect the battery power and processing, speeds, things like that, but it will be interesting. But again, if you were thinking you're going to have AGI on your phone, you're going to be disappointed. I'll just end on that note. But again, I think under the surface, there's a lot more infrastructure and baseline technology being built in that is actually far more impressive than we realize. And some of it is just the AI space has moved so fast, things that maybe 2 years ago would have just blown our minds. We're so used to it now, seeing it come to an iPhone. We're like, it can make an emoji. Like, that's it. But when you really think about what that takes and the fact it's doing it on device, it's pretty impressive. So all that to say, more to come on that. But yeah, don't temper your expectations.